My name is Abigail Reynolds. I'm 33 years old, and I'm the founder of a biotech company based in Seattle. After nearly a decade of sleepless, relentless work, I was about to receive a prestigious national award for my contributions to biomedical science. Everything seemed to be at its peak, until a phone call from the bank shattered my entire world with just one sentence. We've just received a property transfer request under your name, valued at $600,000. The signature of authorization belongs to your father. I froze. I never signed anything. That house was the only property under my name, the first thing I'd ever earned entirely on my own when I turned 30. But when I began digging deeper, what I uncovered was far worse than any fear I'd imagined. My family, the very people I'd been sending money to consistently for the past 4 years, had orchestrated a detailed scheme, forged signatures, and launched a charity in my sister's name to collect donations for a cancer she never had. Have you ever been betrayed by your own family in the most calculated way, all under the guise of love? Leave a comment if you've ever felt used by the ones you trusted most. Hit like if you believe the truth deserves to be exposed. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow the story I'm about to tell, where every mask will fall and justice will speak for itself. I hung up the phone after that call from the bank, my palms drenched in sweat. Even in the climate-controlled meeting room, I felt a fire burning in my chest. They said my father's name was on the transfer document, his signature, with complete information and attached paperwork. But that house was mine. Bought with money I earned after 8 straight years of hard work, saving every penny after my company's initial funding rounds. I stood up, apologized to my colleagues for leaving the meeting early, and stepped outside the building. Seattle was misty that day. I tilted my head to the sky but couldn't even feel the raindrops on my cheeks because inside me, a storm was raging far heavier. Not rain, but questions crashing through my mind. Why? When? And most of all, how could they? I began digging through layers of memory. My parents live in a small town in Ohio, in a modest one-story house I'd been sending money to fix, pay off, and maintain every month. They always said they were proud of me, that I was the hope of the family, the pillar they could brag about to relatives and neighbors. I believed that, and that's why I never hesitated to send money. A fixed $2,800 every month to help with the mortgage, $900 every quarter for air conditioning repairs, roofing, water heater replacements. And on top of that, tens of thousands of dollars I sent when my younger sister, Madison, claimed she had stage 2 lymphoma. She once posted a photo on Instagram with a shaved head, wearing a hospital gown, smiling brightly next to a chemotherapy drip machine. That post went viral with nearly 3 million views and tens of thousands of supportive comments. I saw that photo and choked up reading the caption beneath it. Every second of survival is thanks to people like my sister. Abigail, you are my light. I cried reading that. I truly believed with all my heart that even though we were distant, we were still sisters. And yet, I opened my laptop, logged into my cloud storage account, and started reviewing every document related to the house in Columbus. Deed, legal paperwork, letters from the real estate agency. All confirmed I was the sole owner. No power of attorney, no transfer agreement. So how could my father legally file for a property transfer under his name? I dialed my lawyer in Seattle. Within 10 minutes, she called back. Abigail, you need to check the paperwork in Ohio immediately. Someone might have forged your signature. I can't believe this, I said, my voice cracking. I've handled a lot of real estate fraud cases within families. It's not that rare anymore. You'll need a local investigator. I'll refer you. I nodded, thanked her, and sank onto the edge of the bed. Something inside me felt like it had just shattered. I thought of Madison, the sister who once made the whole family anxious with worry, who told me about the nausea from chemo, about how she had to give up her modeling dreams because she couldn't maintain her figure during illness. I thought of the tens of thousands of dollars I sent to support her treatment, even the German water purifier I had shipped to make sure she wouldn't drink tap water. And then, I thought of that photo again, the shaved head, The gown, the bright smile. Something flashed through my mind like lightning. That patient gown. I had seen it listed for sale on a cosplay website. I reopened the photo. Behind Madison was a wall that didn't look like any hospital wall. I zoomed in. It was a studio backdrop. And that chemo machine? I searched online. It was a medical prop sold for $399. My entire body turned cold. I sat in silence for several minutes. My hand hovered over the mouse but couldn't move. I started searching. Every image Madison had ever posted. Every article about her battle with cancer. Not one hospital named. No doctors. No lab reports. Everything was just narrative. I called my mother. She picked up after 3 rings. Abigail? I thought you were preparing for the award ceremony? Why are you calling now? Mom, I want to ask. About the house in Columbus. Why is there a property transfer under Dad's name? Who signed it? Why wasn't I told? Silence. Then my mom answered, voice softer. Oh, that must be some misunderstanding. Your father just helped with a few formalities. You've been so busy. Busy doesn't mean someone else signs legal documents for me. Mom, this is forgery. This is a crime. Don't say such harsh words, honey. We're family. The house isn't going anywhere, it's just temporarily transferred for easier handling. We'll give it back later. Don't stress. I closed my eyes. My head buzzed. They really thought I'd stay silent again, like all the times before? And what about the Madison Hope Foundation? I asked directly. Hesitation. That was Madison's idea. She wanted to inspire people, and it's not really wrong. People donate because they care, no one forced them. Mom, I'm investigating this. And if I find anyone faking illness, forging documents to raise money, I won't let it slide. Her tone shifted. Are you threatening me? Turning on your own sister? Madison needs money for treatment, and if you won't help, why dig around? I gave a hollow laugh. No more tears left. I did help, more than you know. And now, I'll help in another way. I hung up. In the mirror, I saw my own face, the face of a 33-year-old woman who had poured every dollar into her family like a dutiful daughter, like a responsible sister, like a walking ATM with a smile. I never thought I'd have to expose my own family just to reclaim what was rightfully mine. But if that's the only way to end this web of lies, then so be it. And I won't stop. I returned to Seattle from a short business trip in San Diego less than a day after the call from the bank. The moment I stepped into the office, I didn't go into the meeting room or dive into work like I usually would. Instead, I locked the door, closed the blinds, opened my laptop, and started going through every single document related to the house in Columbus. I remembered the day I signed the purchase agreement so clearly. I hadn't picked that neighborhood because it was prime real estate, but because it was near my parents' home, so if they ever needed me, I could be close. That day, I stood in the front yard, keys in hand, chest full of pride. My parents stood beside me, smiling with pride of their own. They said, "You did good. This house is the first step in building your own empire." I can still see the way my mother looked at me, warm, sincere, like every ounce of love she had was poured into that single moment. But now, looking at the documents the bank had sent over with the transfer files signed in handwriting that looked uncannily like mine, there was no pride in my chest anymore, just a cold, empty pit. I called the bank's financial officer. "Miss Reynolds, legally speaking, this file appears entirely legitimate. The signature matches the ones we have on file. And what if I told you the signature was forged? Then you'll need to prove it. We'll require legal documentation to halt all transfer proceedings, especially since the funds have already been withdrawn and sent to an organization named Madison Hope Foundation." I closed my eyes. Is that a legally registered organization? The line went quiet for a few seconds. We don't see any matching IRS filings for that name in the nonprofit registry. So, it's a ghost foundation? Procedurally speaking, that would be an accurate assumption. I hung up and sighed. I knew I had to return to Ohio. Not to talk, but to see the original documents with my own eyes. And to make one thing clear to them, The game was over. I flew to Columbus the next morning. My mother opened the door when I arrived. She still wore the same too-tight sweater, holding a warm cup of tea, with a soft smile on her lips like everything was fine. "Abigail, why didn't you call ahead? I would have baked cookies if I knew you were coming." I didn't step inside right away. I stood on the front steps and looked her straight in the eyes. "I want to see all the paperwork related to my house. Today." Her smile faded. "That's not really how you greet your family after all these years, is it, Abigail? And forging my signature to sell my property isn't how family treats each other either." She pressed her lips together. "Come inside. No need to air this in front of the neighbors." I stepped into the familiar living room. Everything looked the same as the last time I visited. The family photo from Madison's birthday still hung in the corner. On the table sat a printed thank you letter from an email, titled, "Thank you for supporting Madison's fight, a message sent to donors." I pointed at it. "What is this?" My mom sat down, her eyes drooping like the weight of the world rested on her shoulders. "Madison needed help. She couldn't cover her medical bills. Your father and I just wanted to give her a chance to live." What's so wrong with using money for a good cause? And what's right about lying to hundreds of people, faking medical records, pretending to be sick to solicit donations? She said nothing. Her eyes didn't dodge mine. They pleaded. "Abigail, I'm begging you. What's done is done. The money's already been used. You're successful. You don't need that house anymore. It's just a piece of paper." "No, Mom. It's trust. It's the last boundary I had left with this family." The door creaked open. My father walked in, holding a brown paper bag with groceries. He froze when he saw me. "Abigail?" I stood up and faced him. "Dad, I want to see the original documents for the house. The real ones. Right now." He set the bag down. "Your mother told you?" I nodded. "You forged my signature. You sent falsified documents to the bank. Do you realize that's a crime?" He didn't respond. Instead, he walked into the study and returned with a stack of papers in his hands. I took them and flipped through each page. Lots of printed sheets. There was even a notarized copy of the signature. I looked closely. They had tried to mimic my handwriting, and to a stranger's eye, it might have worked. But I spotted the flaws instantly. I never wrote the letter R like that, and the last stroke of my A always curled a tiny flourish they missed. I turned to them. "I'm working with a lawyer. This doesn't stop here." "What are you going to do? Call the police? Take your parents to court?" My mother snapped her calm, finally cracking. "If that's the only way to reclaim what's mine, then yes. And not just for the house, for the truth." The room went silent. My mother leaned back in her chair, eyes bitter. "You always think you're above us, Abigail. But do you know what Madison's been through? Waking up every day with pressure, with the weight of everyone comparing her to you?" I stood still, then answered slowly. "So, she fakes being sick? To feel loved? To take money from kind strangers? And you both helped her because I was too successful?" No one replied. Rain and began to fall outside. The house echoed with the soft ticking of drops hitting the eaves. I stood up. "I'm contacting the bank and the IRS. The Madison Hope Foundation was never legally registered. Every cent raised through donations will be traced. You'd better be ready." I walked out of that house without looking back. The wind outside was biting, but all I felt was emptiness. A part of me had hoped they'd show some decency. But maybe. I expected too much. And now, I had to act. Not for the money, but for the truth, and because I had stayed silent for too long. I didn't go back to Seattle immediately after leaving my parents' house. I rented a small apartment in northern Columbus, about a 15-minute drive from where they lived, close enough to monitor, far enough to keep my distance. For the first 3 days, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that house again. My mother's furious expression, the look of someone exposed but not even slightly remorseful. I decided to contact an old friend from my MBA program when I was 27. His name was Tyler Mendez, a private investigator with a small office in Cincinnati. When I called, he picked up on the first ring. Abigail? It's been ages. You calling me at this hour? Something's wrong, isn't it? I sat up straighter. I need a private investigation. Discreet as possible. It's family related. Specifics? My sister. She's been accepting donations from the public by telling everyone she has cancer. But I have reason to believe it's all a lie. Tyler didn't ask any more questions. He simply said, "Give me 3 days. Send me everything you have, socials, bank details, everything. And Abigail, if you're right, this is going to be a big one." I sent him everything I had gathered: Instagram posts, YouTube videos, thank you emails from the so-called charity foundation, and a list of celebrities who had once shared the fundraising campaign. Madison had built an entire perfect image. Hair falling out in patches, pale skin, a brave smile surrounded by IV tubes and hospital lighting. Every photo came with a caption like a moving short story. I used to believe every word. Now, just looking at them made me sick to my stomach. 3 days later, Tyler called back. His voice was lower, stripped of the usual friendliness. I checked. Madison has never received treatment at any cancer facility in the entire state of Ohio. I also searched the private insurance system: no matching records. No chemo prescriptions, no biopsy tests, not a single doctor who's ever prescribed or treated her. I gripped the phone. What about the medical bills she posted? Fake. Some were reconstructed using photo editing software, that so-called special therapy hospital in the emails. It's actually the address of an abandoned dental office. And Abigail, there's more. I swallowed hard. What? I found 2 behind-the-scenes videos on Madison's backup account, where she stores unedited content. One of them shows her laughing with a man in a white coat. They called him the actor doctor. He doesn't have a medical license. Turns out he's a freelance model who once did an ad for e-cigarettes. She hired someone to play a doctor? Yeah. In a few clips, you can even hear people laughing behind the camera. There's one where Madison says, "Cut." That crying didn't look real enough. I couldn't speak. Not because I was shocked, but because it hurt. What about the money? I asked. Tyler replied, I estimate the total to be over $1.2 million. I tracked down 3 accounts under the name Madison Hope Foundation, all linked to Madison's personal accounts. The money was spent on very specific things: Hermes bags, 2 trips to the Maldives, 3 nights at a Bora Bora resort, and most notably, $280,000, funneled into a crypto exchange that went bankrupt 3 months ago. I closed my eyes, jaw clenched. She conned the entire community. She conned me. All of us, just to keep up appearances and buy handbags. Tyler gently added, I know this isn't easy, but if you need it, I can prepare the full legal dossier and evidence package for the authorities. Are you planning to go public with this? I didn't answer right away. I needed to breathe. I stood up, walked to the balcony, and looked out over a city cloaked in cold fog. I listened to the wind rustling the trees, the distant sounds of traffic. Life was moving on as usual, while I had just discovered that my sister hadn't only faked an illness, she had constructed an entire world to drain the generosity of others. How many people had sent money, shared her story, prayed for her, cried for her? How many real children with cancer were fighting every day to stay alive, while my sister wore cosplay outfits and cried on live stream to collect donations? I went back inside. Tyler, compile everything. Send it to my attorney. I'm done staying quiet. After hanging up, I sat in front of my screen the entire night, reading every email, every post Madison ever wrote. She once posted, Some mornings I wake up with blood dripping from my nose, head pounding like a hammer. I know I'm leaving this world soon, but I'm not afraid. I only wish I could see my sister get married. She's always been stronger than me. I read that last Thanksgiving and cried so hard I couldn't eat dinner. Now all I felt was rage. She hadn't just manipulated me emotionally. She used the very love I had for her to stage the most tragic narrative and cast me as a background character while she stood in the spotlight playing the brave warrior. And I had been silently funding that performance, dollar by dollar. but I was no longer the quiet sister standing behind her. I spent the next 2 days in complete silence. I didn't call my parents, didn't reach out to Madison, didn't post anything online. To the outside world, I was still Abigail Reynolds, the busy entrepreneur with a week packed full of meetings. But inside, I was planning the first counterattack of my life, and I knew once it started, there'd be no turning back. I met with my personal attorney, Celeste, at a discreet cafe in the Capitol Hill neighborhood. She was the one who had helped me secure intellectual property rights for my biotech company, a woman I trusted completely for her honesty and integrity. As soon as I opened my laptop and began scrolling through the first files, Celeste stared at me for a long time, then placed her hand around her still warm coffee mug. Abigail, do you fully understand where this could lead? I do, I replied firmly, but I can't stay silent this time. I handed her the account statement linked to the name Madison Hope Foundation, where the public donations had gone in, only to be redirected to Madison's personal accounts labeled as operating fees. The total was over $1.2 million. Of that, more than $400,000 came directly from my parents' account, described as treatment support for daughter. Each of those transfers included fake medical records, which I had verified through Tyler's investigation. Next came the unedited videos. Madison laughing, flirting with the fake doctor, adjusting her wig before filming. In one clip, she demonstrated how to create fake tears by applying glycerin to her eyes and giggling. See? Acting is everything. Celeste was stunned. Then she finally spoke. Abigail, this isn't just about deceiving your family anymore. This is community donation fraud, falsification of medical documents, money laundering, and very likely tax evasion too. I nodded and opened one more document. The legal registration paperwork for Madison Hope Foundation. I had asked Tyler to get it from the Ohio State Financial Office. The legal representative listed wasn't Madison. It was my mother, Rachel Reynolds. Celeste frowned. Your mother? Exactly. She's the official legal and financial controller of the foundation. Madison was just the face. Celeste leaned back in her chair and exhaled. So she didn't just know. She actively participated and helped create the entire scam. I let her sit in silence for a few seconds before continuing. I want to gather every piece of evidence, build the complete case. We're not filing yet, not rushing. I need them to see that I'm no longer the daughter they can exploit and expect to get away with it. Celeste understood immediately. You want them to know they're being watched, that the pressure is closing in. I want them to see that I'm the one holding the power to expose it, no one else, and if needed, I will bring everything into the light. I returned to the temporary apartment and began building the case file day by day. I created a dedicated folder titled Reynolds: The Full Truth. Inside were every bank statement, every screenshot of fundraising posts, every luxury expense pulled from Madison's personal accounts. There were also thank you notes from donors, real patients, single mothers who had sent $50 even while struggling to raise their children. Reading their words felt like a fist crushing my chest. One was from a woman named Helen, 62 years old, living in Iowa, who had once sent $200 along with a message. I'm undergoing real chemotherapy, but I believe little Madison will fight even harder than I ever did. Sending her a bit of hope from someone who's been there. I read that line over and over, my hand shaking too much to hold the mouse steady. I also created a transaction analysis sheet. That's when I noticed something I hadn't seen before. There were regular monthly transfers, an average of $3,000 from the foundation to my mother's personal account. The description read, logistics fee, medical guardian. Then, from my mother's account, the money continued to flow into my father's account, under the label, payment for late-stage treatment loan. All three of them, Madison, my mother, my father, were directly profiting from that fake charity fund. When I printed out all the paperwork, the file was so thick I needed 2 large binder clips to hold it together. I sat staring at it for hours. I saw my story, my family's story, laid out in black and white. No more vague suspicions or emotional instincts. just undeniable, documented proof. That night, I called Tyler again. "You ready to move into phase 2?" he asked. "I need one more thing." "What is it?" "Find out who's managing the Charity Foundation's Instagram account. And who owns the official website. If it's my mother or Madison, I want a legal takedown notice sent immediately before they try to destroy any more evidence." "Got it. I'm on it." After the call, I opened my email and sent Celeste the full set of scanned documents. At the bottom, I added a note. "Prepare everything, but don't file yet. Let them know I'm coming. And let them fall apart on their own." I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the dark, watching the glow of the streetlight slip through the curtains, feeling a strange sense of calm. Not because anything was over, but because I had begun. I received a message from my mother on Saturday morning, right as I was about to send the first legal document to their attorney's office. The message was short. "Come home for dinner tonight. I'm making your favorite stew. We all miss you." Not a single word about the investigation. No apology. No sign of fear. Just that gentle tone, as if everything was still fine. I stared at the message for a long time. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. One click, and everything I had prepared would be sent. But instead of hitting send, I picked up my phone and replied, "I'll be there. 6 o'clock." When I arrived, the house was fully lit. The smell of beef stew drifted from the kitchen. The dining table was neatly set white tablecloth, candles flickering gently as if it were an anniversary dinner, not a confrontation between the betrayed and the betrayers. Madison opened the door. She wore a beige, floor-length dress, her hair softly curled, her face carefully made up. If I didn't know the truth, I might have believed that tired grace was real. She looked at me, her lips trembling. "You came." I nodded, stepping into the house without a word. My mother stood by the stove, ladling soup into bowls. My father sat at the table, holding a glass of wine. All three of them turned toward me like actors in a well-rehearsed play. My mother smiled. "You've lost weight. Must be working too. Much lately?" "I've been dealing with something personal," I replied calmly. She nodded. "Yes. I heard you've been a bit stressed. Maybe from work? Or about the award situation?" I sat down across from them. "No. It's about my house being transferred without consent. About the fake charity bearing my sister's name collecting over $1 million. About the forged documents and lies over the past 4 years." No one responded right away. The air went still, as if I had just punctured a fragile balloon they were desperately trying to keep from bursting. My mother set the ladle down. "Abigail, listen to me. We're a family. Things that have happened should be handled delicately, kept within the family. Blowing this up doesn't help anyone." I looked her straight in the eye. "Do you realize what you did is illegal?" "Don't say it like that." Her tone softened. "Madison, she really is sick, sweetheart. She just didn't want to make people worry, so she created a little narrative. And the foundation, it was to help her, to inspire others. I registered it under my name because I thought I could manage it better, keep it from being exploited." Madison sat beside me and took my hand. "Abby, I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted a little love. My whole life I've lived in your shadow. You're the genius, the one saving the world. I just wanted to be seen for once." I pulled my hand away. "So, you chose to fake cancer? Do you know how many people out there are actually fighting every day to stay alive? How many children lose their hair, their strength, and still believe in kindness from people like you?" Madison looked down, tears falling. I went quiet for a moment, and then, like a second blade slicing through me, my father spoke up. "Abigail, I think you need to stop. You're letting your emotions cloud your judgment. That's not like you. I think maybe you should talk to someone." I turned to him. "What kind of doctor, Dad? The kind Madison hired for her live streams?" His face turned red. "Watch your tone. Everything we did was to preserve the family's reputation. If you take this public, who will believe you? People will say you're jealous that you couldn't stand your sister getting attention. I gave a quiet laugh. I've already prepared the full legal file, Dad. I have the videos, the bank statements, the forged signatures. I don't need anyone to believe me. I just need the truth to come out. At that, Madison looked up, her face soaked in tears but her eyes full of fire. You'd be happy if I died for real, wouldn't you? You've never loved me. You've always thought I was a burden, and now that you have the chance to destroy me, you're going all in. I looked at her. She was no longer the little sister I once rocked to sleep when Mom was tired. No longer the child who cried into my shoulder after being bullied at school. She was a grown woman who had built an entire tragedy just to bask in false spotlight. I stood and pulled a manila envelope from my bag. This is a copy of part of the legal file I've submitted to my attorney. I'm leaving it here so you have time to think. If you want to resolve this quietly, I'm open to negotiation. But if I see one more fundraising post, if even one more dollar gets withdrawn from the foundation account, I will press full criminal charges. My mother's face went pale. My father clenched his jaw. Madison kept sobbing. I turned toward the door without touching a bite of food or taking a single sip of wine. Behind me, the house was silent. No one called out, no one tried to stop me. They used to think I was soft, that a few emotional words could earn them forgiveness. But I had brought the fuse, and they had lit it themselves. I flew back to Seattle early the next morning. During the 3.5-hour flight, I didn't read, didn't listen to music, didn't work like I usually did. I just stared out the window, the cold glow of the cloud layer soothing the slow, aching pulse beneath my ribs. I had walked out of that house with a decision I would never take back. And now, I had to see it through. As soon as I got back to my office, I picked up the phone. Celeste, I need to speak with an investigative media consultant, someone respected. Not a tabloid chaser, but someone who knows how to bring the truth into the light the right way. She was silent for a few seconds before answering. I know someone, Allison Meyer. Used to work for a major financial newspaper, later went independent, specializes in charity fraud and personal finance scams. She's exposed 3 fake pediatric cancer foundations before. She gets results. Help me set it up. 3 days later, I met Allison at a small cafe in Capitol Hill. She arrived with a voice recorder placed squarely on the table, but her eyes were scanning me like she was reading every small expression on my face. I read the file Celeste sent, she said, her voice calm and steady. Actually, I've been tracking the Madison Hope Foundation for a while. The share count has spiked abnormally over the past 6 months. I suspected something was off, but I never expected the evidence to come from a family member. I replied directly. I'm not here to vent. I'm here because thousands of people believed in a lie. I did too, and I funded it. Allison nodded, then opened her laptop. I'll need everything. Original records, transfer receipts, bank statements, proof of document forgery, behind-the-scenes videos, as much as you can provide. I had already prepared everything. I handed her the encrypted folder with clear annotations for each section. Allison plugged in the flash drive and scanned through the materials silently for over 30 minutes, occasionally frowning or nodding. When she reached the footage of Madison laughing with the actor playing the doctor, she froze. This is undeniable. There are so many people out there who don't have professional cameras to stage chemo, I said calmly, though my throat ached with restrained emotion. Allison looked at me, not as a journalist, but as a human being. I'll write this story. But this isn't just a family drama. You understand that, right? Once this goes public, it will spread fast. And the people involved, they can't go back. I don't need them to come back. After leaving the cafe, I took the next step, contacting a nonprofit I had quietly supported before, Fair Share Watch, an organization that investigates charity fraud and offers legal support to victims. I spoke with the director, Frederick Lee, a retired attorney now running an investigative team made up entirely of former government officials. When I told him the full story, he was quiet for a long time before finally exhaling. I've seen some terrible cases, but I've never seen someone build a whole fraud operation like this, faking their own illness, then putting the mother's name as legal owner of the foundation. I need help freezing all the accounts before they drain the funds. We'll coordinate with your attorney. Also, you should know with this evidence, you're well within your rights to file with federal authorities. I had already considered it, and now it was time to act. That evening, I prepared 2 complete files. One was sent to the Seattle field office of the FBI. The other went to the IRS Financial Fraud Investigation Unit. In both letters, I clearly stated the allegations: charity fraud, tax evasion, and forgery of legal documents tied to the Madison Hope Foundation. I attached all videos, transfer records, Tyler's investigation, and Celeste's detailed analysis. But I didn't stop there. I instructed my lawyer to initiate proceedings to recover the property that had been unlawfully transferred, specifically the house in Columbus. That house had been illegally signed over to my mother, then used as collateral to withdraw charity funds. We sent a notice to the bank, citing forged signatures and breach of property ownership contracts. 2 days later, the bank responded. All transactions involving the property were temporarily suspended pending legal verification. Madison's accounts also came under scrutiny. Allison texted me. Her overseas wire transfers are being flagged by the bank. A week later, I received a call from an FBI agent. He requested an in-person meeting to clarify a few details. And while every link in the chain began tightening, I received a notification from one of the digital payment providers. The account under the name Madison Hope Foundation has been temporarily suspended. We are working with the authorities to provide necessary information. I read the message and leaned back in my chair, feeling my body begin to relax. Not because it was over, but because the truth was speaking. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to cry. I only needed the silence of reason and the weight of evidence. They chose to build a lie. I'm just peeling the makeup off the face it wore. The expose aired at 8 p.m. on Wednesday on one of the nation's major news networks. I didn't watch it live. I couldn't stay calm. Instead, I sat in my office, phone face down on the desk, the window slightly open so the Seattle wind could help keep my mind sharp. But when the first message alert chimed, then the second, the third, and nonstop for over 10 minutes, I knew it had begun. The report title flashed across the screen in the very first seconds. The Cancer Con, $1 million lie. I received the full recording from Allison just 30 minutes after the program ended. It was a sharp, clean edit, no mercy. They opened with last year's footage of Madison, bald head, wearing a mask, IV in her arm, smiling softly at the camera. The narrator's voice came in. This young woman was praised nationwide for her optimism while battling terminal cancer. But it was all an act. Then the layers peeled back. The chemo footage was filmed in a rented studio in Columbus. The doctor was a model previously featured in an anti-aging cream ad. Behind-the-scenes clips showed Madison adjusting the IV line herself, then laughing when the prop slipped from her arm. Every detail was laid bare, so no one could doubt. Then came the numbers. The bank accounts linked to the Madison Hope Foundation. Over $1.2 million raised from the public, hundreds of small transactions from people who weren't wealthy. A single mother sent $20 saying, "Even if I have to cut back on groceries this week." A veteran living on benefits sent $50 with a note, "Keep fighting. I fought once, and I believe you'll win." Each of those messages flashed on screen as clips of Madison dancing on a Maldives yacht played in the background. At the end of the program, the narrator's voice slowed, heavy with judgment. We reached out to Madison Reynolds' representative, but received no response. However, federal agencies confirm that they have launched an investigation into charity fraud and tax evasion connected to this foundation. Within an hour of the broadcast, social media exploded. I reopened Instagram. Madison's account no longer had a profile picture, but the old posts were still visible. And below them were thousands of furious comments. "You took money meant for real patients just to go on vacation?" "I lost my daughter to cancer." You insulted her and stole money meant for kids like mine. This is the kind of person who cries in front of the camera and laughs behind it. Disgusting. The posts were gradually hidden afterward, but the online community had already saved them. Those who once shared, once sympathized, were now the first to speak out in criticism. A famous artist who had appeared in a donation appeal video came forward publicly. I feel deeply betrayed. Madison Reynolds abused the trust and kindness of this community. I apologize for having supported this lie. All three brands that had signed sponsorship contracts with Madison immediately canceled their partnerships. A fashion label released a clear statement. We have ceased all collaboration with Miss Madison Reynolds upon discovering undeniable evidence of charitable fraud. We do not condone any form of moral deception in the name of inspiration. The charity's website was temporarily taken offline the following morning. A red message appeared on a white screen, temporarily suspended for investigation. My phone kept ringing. This time, it wasn't friends or family. It was journalists, lawyers, charity organizations, and some individuals who had once donated to the foundation. Some called to thank me for speaking up. Some cried over the phone, feeling deceived. Others stayed silent and said only one thing. You helped me believe in justice again. I listened to all of them. I took notes. I responded to each person with respect. But there was a moment when I sat alone in my office, the afternoon sun cutting through the blinds, and felt an odd emptiness. Not because I regretted anything. No. But because I had never imagined watching my own sister fall apart under the eyes of the world. I used to think Madison would grow up to be strong. Maybe not like me, but at least ethical. But she had chosen the spotlight, and she had forgotten that trust has limits. That night, Madison went live. Only a few hundred viewers compared to the hundreds of thousands before. She sat in a dark room, eyes swollen, hair down, voice trembling. I know everyone hates me right now. I know. But I swear, I never meant to trick anyone. I just never felt enough. I was never as smart or successful as my sister. I never felt seen. And when people started calling me a warrior, I finally felt real. I messed up, but I'm not a monster. I'm just someone who wanted to be loved. The comments under the video were split. Some felt compassion, others condemned her. As for me, I just watched her for a long time, then turned off the screen. Because at that point, no justification held weight anymore. Not because I wanted my sister to suffer, but because I couldn't let anyone else be hurt by that lie. A week after the broadcast, I got a message from an unknown number with a photo. My parents' old house in Columbus wrapped in yellow tape, with a sign that read, Property under federal investigation. Behind the tape was an IRS vehicle, and two agents sealing the living room windows. The house I grew up in, where my mother used to plant rows of chrysanthemums every year, now stood silent under the gray sky like a quiet witness to the collapse of an entire family. The photo was sent by Mrs. Louise, an old neighbor. She wrote briefly, Abigail, if you need more photos for evidence, I can take them. I thanked her, my heart heavy, not with sorrow, but because I had never wished it would come to this. The press started picking up the story. One article in the Columbus Ledger was headlined, From Charity to Federal Fraud, the Reynolds Family Faces Subpoena. It detailed how Madison Reynolds, 28 years old, along with her parents, Rachel and Thomas Reynolds, were under investigation for defrauding the public, federal tax evasion, and unlawful asset transfers. The subpoenas had been delivered to all three the day before. I called Celeste to confirm. Yes, she said. And that's not all. Your father was fired this morning. The accounting firm where he worked issued a termination notice for ethical violations and loss of client trust. I stayed silent. Even though I had braced myself for the consequences, it still felt like someone gripping my wrist and pulling me back into memory. I remembered him sitting for hours helping me with math homework, building a cardboard model of Saturn in the backyard when I was in 3rd grade. But he was also the one who forged the signature on the deed that transferred my house. I opened my email. There was an unread message from my mother's address. Not a text, but a full email, with a proper subject line. Have you done enough? I clicked on it. Abigail, I never thought you'd take it this far. I always believed, even when you were angry, you knew where to stop. But now I'm not so sure. You humiliated Madison in front of the public. You got your father fired. This house is sealed off. The neighbors look at us like garbage. Is that what you wanted? I know Madison was wrong, but she's my daughter. She's your sister. She's not evil. She's just weak. I can't turn my back on her. Now you've succeeded. This family is shattered. Your father is up all night worrying. Madison won't step outside. The neighbors avoid us. Her old teacher called and said she's disappointed. You've won, Abigail. Congratulations. Mom, I read it 3 times. Not a single apology, no accountability, just blame and manipulation. I sat on the couch, poured myself a cold glass of water, and thought about the words I had once longed to hear from her. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I shouldn't have made you carry everything alone. But instead, she wrote, you've won. I opened Instagram. Madison had just posted. A photo in her bedroom, wet pillow, dim lighting, her face puffy, eyes red. The caption, written in small font, sometimes, it's your own blood who lights the match that burns down the house you called home. I didn't reply. I wasn't angry, just sad. The comments below were still divided. Some called her a victim of social pressure. Others were more direct. She didn't get burned. She lit the fire and dragged others in. Another user wrote, don't forget her sister wasn't the attacker. She was the only one brave enough to speak the truth. I closed the app, leaned my head against the wall, the morning light streaming through the window, falling onto my bare feet curled up on the cold wooden floor. The news, the posts, the accusations came at me like I had just crushed an entire bloodline. But I knew I had only pulled back the curtain. And what they feared wasn't me. It was the light. Celeste called back that afternoon. Their lawyer is proposing a settlement. I haven't heard the terms, but you should know, the IRS won't back off. The tax investigation is still underway. And the federal side? Still gathering documents. But if your testimony and evidence are strong enough, they could indict Madison and your mother too. I let out a breath. So, it's not over. No. But you've gone farther than most victims ever dare to. That night, I got another message from my father's number. Abby, do you remember the first time I taught you how to drive? You crashed straight into the neighbor's fence. I didn't get angry. I said, everyone has a first time. But now, I don't know what to say anymore. I'm tired. If you want to end all this, call me back. I can't take it anymore. I set the phone down, walked into the kitchen, and made myself a cup of tea. As the water boiled, I looked out the window. The streetlights cast a soft yellow glow. The trees swayed gently in the breeze. Everything out there looked calm, as if nothing had happened. But I knew the storm was only just beginning inside them. And I was no longer the one holding the umbrella for them. The hearing was scheduled for Monday morning at the Franklin County Courthouse in Columbus. I arrived early, dressed in a simple navy blue suit, hair neatly tied up, makeup light. I wasn't there to make a statement. I was there for closure. Outside the courthouse, a group of reporters waited. Some recognized me, called my name, raised their cameras. But I didn't stop. I walked straight through the glass doors into a room that smelled of old wood and the heavy air of judgment. Madison arrived a few minutes later with her lawyer. She wore a gray knit dress, her hair hanging over her face, oversized sunglasses hiding her eyes despite the cloudy sky. My mother walked beside her, gripping a small Bible, her face tired and rigid. My father didn't come. Presiding over the case was Judge Margot Callahan, a woman in her 60s with sharp eyes and a husky but clear voice. She demanded complete silence in the courtroom. No one was to speak unless addressed. Madison's lawyer began with the same argument, that she was a victim of post-traumatic stress, that she had been pressured into becoming an online role model to cope with her fear of death, that she never intended to cause harm, only wanted to preserve others' hope in life. My lawyer didn't interrupt. He quietly held up a USB drive. "Your Honor, we'd like to present our evidence." The screen came to life with a video clip. Madison sitting in front of a camera, telling her viewers she was receiving chemotherapy, gauze wrapped around her arm, a beanie on her head. But in the mirror behind her, you could clearly see a studio setup, professional lighting equipment, a man adjusting a softbox, and a taped cue sheet on the wall that read, "Scene 2, sad expression, no tears." The room went still. Judge Callahan motioned for the video to stop. "Do you care to explain this, Miss Reynolds?" Madison's hands trembled as she removed her sunglasses. Her eyes weren't red. No tears. She glanced at me, then looked down at the floor. My lawyer continued. "We also present written confirmation from 3 major hospitals in Columbus: Grant Medical Center, Riverside Methodist, and Ohio Health, all verifying that Madison Reynolds has not been a registered cancer patient in the past 3 years." He held up bank statements, records of transfers from the bloater, Madison Hope Foundation into her personal account, clearly labeled Chanel purse purchase, villa deposit in Tulum, crypto investment on Binance. "Your Honor, no legitimate cancer patient uses donation funds for luxury vacations in the Maldives, with first-class flights while live-streaming chemotherapy sessions." I was called to the stand. I didn't say much. I presented the house deed, the forged signature, and the power of attorney form that listed my mother as custodian of the property. When the lawyer asked, "Why didn't you take legal action sooner?" I replied, "Because I thought it was just my family making a mistake, not fraud." The judge's eyes held no coldness, only contemplation. My mother was called next. She held the Bible in her hands as she took the stand. When asked about her legal role in the charity foundation, she said, "I just did what my daughter told me. I didn't understand all the paperwork." My lawyer pressed, "You didn't understand, yet you signed documents opening the charity's bank account? You approved transfers for crypto investments?" My mother was speechless. A moment later, she began to cry. The tears fell into her palms, but no one moved to comfort her. Judge Callahan remained quiet for a long time. She finally announced a 30-minute recess to deliberate with the prosecution. I stayed in my seat. I sat there, in the room where every lie had been laid bare, where no one could hide behind teary stories anymore. When she returned, her voice was firm. "Based on the clear and verified evidence presented, this court rules as follows. Madison Reynolds, guilty of charitable fraud, document falsification, and tax evasion. Sentenced to 18 months of house arrest, 1 year of community service, and full restitution of all misused funds. Rachel Reynolds, guilty of aiding financial fraud and falsifying legal documents. Sentenced to 9 months probation and a $75,000 fine. All properties, including the Columbus house, fraudulent charity funds, and assets purchased with donations are to be seized and auctioned to repay damages. Miss Abigail Reynolds, fully exonerated, entitled to a public statement restoring her reputation and full legal ownership of the wrongfully transferred property." I exhaled. It wasn't relief exactly, but it was clarity. Finality. Madison didn't look at me. As she stepped down, she turned her face away, hiding beneath an oversized coat. My mother kept her head bowed, silent. I didn't feel triumphant. But I knew what I truly reclaimed that day wasn't just the house, or a name on a deed. It was myself. The trust I had lost in my own voice. The truth they once believed they could strangle with guilt and blood ties. I left the courthouse in silence. No one called my name, but I walked out, head held high, with nothing left to hide. I returned to Seattle on a rainy March afternoon. As the plane touched down at SeaTac International Airport, I stood by the window, looking out, feeling lighter than I had on any trip home before. Something inside me had shifted. I was no longer the older sister, always searching for excuses to forgive. No longer the daughter torn between filial piety and truth. I was me, the one woman solely responsible for protecting herself from cruelty disguised as family. The taxi took me through the Magnolia neighborhood, where houses overlooked Elliott Bay and the endless pine trees in the distance. I stared out the window. thinking about the house that had once been stolen from me with a forged signature, the house I once saw as the beginning of my freedom, my own life, a family I would choose for myself. Now, I didn't need it anymore. A week later, I signed the papers to sell it. The buyers were a young couple, both college professors, with a newborn baby. They loved the wood grain patterns in the living room, appreciated how I had kept the old bookshelf and the wooden shelves I built myself. When I handed them the keys, the wife gently held my hand. "Thank you. This house has a soul," she said, her eyes slightly moist. I simply smiled and nodded. I didn't tell them the story behind those walls. I believed sometimes the best thing we can do is leave the past where it belongs. The house no longer belonged to me, but what I reclaimed from it was the value of letting go. The sale brought in a substantial amount. I used part of it to establish a scholarship fund called the Reynolds Biomedical Promise for students in biomedical fields, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds who had once been rejected because of their family circumstances. I worked with a team of academic advisors to ensure transparency, neutrality, and fairness in every step of the process. A sophomore majoring in microbiology wrote me a thank you letter. In it, he shared that his father died of cancer when he was still. In high school, his mother worked as a waitress, and he had thought about dropping out because he couldn't afford lab equipment. When I read the scholarship announcement, I thought it was a mistake. I didn't believe I was chosen. But if a stranger believes in me enough to invest in my future, then I won't let them down. I cried when I read those lines. As for my family, I haven't heard my father's voice since the trial. I heard he resigned from his old company just days after the news spread. A few former neighbors in Ohio said they saw him walking alone early in the mornings, head down, no longer bearing the arrogance or judgment he used to carry. I don't know how he really feels, but I no longer feel responsible for finding out. My mother sent one message, just one line. "You chose the outside, so don't expect to come back." I looked at the message and felt no pain. Just peace. I didn't reply. Because if she thought I chose the outside just because I refused to side with blood even when I knew they were wrong, then maybe she never really understood who I am. And Madison, she still appeared online as a survivor of depression, claiming she was destroyed by her own family, saying some emotional wounds hurt more than cancer. A few people left "stay strong" comments, but most responded with criticism, sarcasm, or quietly unfollowed her. Former sponsors publicly ended all partnerships. Social media platforms refused to verify her new accounts. To the public, the story of the fake cancer warrior had become a cautionary tale about blind trust and the idolization of suffering. I didn't care. Every morning, I made coffee, opened the window to let the light into my small new apartment near the University of Washington. I went to work on time, taught my students with a passion I had once forgotten while chasing other people's expectations. On weekends, I biked to Lake Union with a book sometimes, psychology, sometimes children's stories. I started writing again. Not about family, not about pain. I wrote about the quiet joy of seeing a student finally understand a hard concept, about the smile from the girl at the local bakery, about the sound of a wooden flute played by an old man at the subway station. Small things, but real. I learned to love myself again through those little things. One afternoon, as the sun set over the lake, a girl about 9 years old sat beside me and asked, "Ma'am, how come you read alone and don't look sad?" I smiled softly. "Because I don't need anyone to make me happy. I can do that myself." The girl nodded slightly, then turned back toward the shimmering sunlight on the water. In that moment, I knew I was truly free. No longer someone trying to hold on to family at any cost. No longer someone bracing not to get hurt. I was just me, a woman who had lived through loss, lies, and betrayal from the very people who were supposed to protect her, but who never lost her heart. And in the end, I made the right choice, to let go, to choose freedom, to choose myself. If you've listened this far, maybe you too have wondered, when is it enough? How do we know where the line is between forgiveness and letting go? I don't have a perfect answer. But I do know there are times when silence is no longer noble, and kindness is no longer right when it's being exploited. There are people, even those who share our blood, who can hurt us more deeply than anyone else. And sometimes, walking away isn't because we don't love them anymore, but because we finally learned how to love ourselves. I chose to stop, not for revenge, but to end a cycle I never started. And what about you? If you were me, what would you have done? Have you ever been caught between family and the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments below because I believe this story isn't just mine alone. And if you care about real-life stories, filled with twists and emotion, about the hidden corners in relationships that seem closest, don't forget to follow this channel for more. Thank you for staying with me till the end. See you in the next story where truth, love, and courage always walk together.